My name's Gary Cartwright. I'm the publisher of EUtoday.net, here in the European Parliament today in Brussels with Michel Terestchenko and Olena Terestchenko, really to discuss the situation regarding the relationship between the EU and Ukraine, as Ukraine asserts its European identity more and more, and as the EU tries to open its arms to Ukraine to embrace Ukraine in the hope of Ukrainian membership of the Union sooner rather than later. We know that following the events in Maidan, there's been a lot of unrest, uncertainty, instability, political uncertainty and instability, centering on Kiev. And I'd like to turn first of all, Olena, a former deputy of Kiev. Where are we at the moment, would you say? Following on from Maidan, where would you say the situation is today? Where do you think we're heading in the short term?
Unfortunately, our revolution of dignity has not been finished yet. It just starts because the system has not been changed. We change just the faces, but all the corruptive schemes that functioning before, unfortunately, they are still functioning. And we could not accept it, because a lot of people, they gave their lives for our dignity future. So now is our duty, the duty of every Ukrainian, to continue the fight with corruption and to continue the struggle for our European future. And we do it now. The situation, unfortunately, we do not have reforms, real reforms. Mostly it's imitation, but in some fields probably there is progress, but it's not enough to change the whole system, where the real decisions do not take in our official institution. They just taken in informal centers of decision makers and just put to the official institutions. So we should change this system, and we should start with the election laws, because the election law which we have now, it's awful, and it's not able to change the oligarch system which we have now. Because if you do not have a lot of money, you could not be elected, and you could not be independent in the structure of the political parties, because they are not real political parties. They are just political projects which are financed by certain oligarchs, and only 3% of population of Ukraine are members of this political project. So they do not really represent the interests of people. So we need such election law which gives the equal conditions to each citizen of Ukraine to be elected according to the constitution. So we should put away the financial resource and forbid the advertisement on TV, outdoor advertisement, just make equal budget for elections. It's the main thing we need.
I think what you're really saying there is that there's a need for a more direct democracy, more active and meaningful citizen participation, because if you deprive citizens of the right to participate in the electoral process, this is where you end up with events like Maidan, where you end up with civil unrest, and this is bad for all concerned. Do you feel that at the moment there's the potential for yet another Maidan?
Probably it could be, but we do not want another revolution. We just want, in peaceful way, to push our parliament to vote for the laws the population needs. But it's very difficult because, unfortunately, our parliament and our councils, it's a business club. where the deputies do not represent the interests of people, and they represent their own business interests or the interests of the people who delegate them to these institutions. So we hope that we could do it in a peaceful way. But our people, they could not wait so long, and we do everything possible and impossible to change the situation. We do not count on the European Union. We know that it's our own task. It's the task of the citizens of Ukraine to change our country.
Michel, Mayor of Hlukhiv in Ukraine. You've spent a lot of your life in France, so you have very much a good European perspective on this relationship between Ukraine and the EU, and I know that you're one of the politicians who's very, very anxious or very keen to further the ties between the EU and Ukraine. Now, Olena mentioned there corruption. When we're talking about the future relationship between the EU and Ukraine, this word corruption seems to come in the first paragraph of every discussion. Do you think that sufficient reform has been made? If not, will it be made? More importantly, is there the will within the political elites for reform?
Well, Gary, to make it short, we have lost 4 years. After Maidan, there was a fantastic enthusiasm. I accepted the Ukrainian citizenship and decided to enter the ballots in Hlukhiv to help the president, to help the new elected people, to help the reformers to change the country, to build a new country, new civilized European country. I had fantastic hopes. After 4 years, where are we? Well, in Hlukhiv, yes, we have demonstrated that it is possible to work without corruption, but we are an island in the middle of the ocean of corruption, and we cannot go any further because the governor, the procurer, the chief of police are corrupted. The member of parliament, which is in our circumscription, is one of the most corrupted person, and we are bothering just because we are showing that it is possible. At the higher level, which would be the oblast or the country, my diagnostic is very severe. We have lost 4 years. In 1 year, we will have election. But in the last year, it's impossible to change, unfortunately, the perception of the people. The confidence has disappeared. The hope has disappeared. We are losing the war on corruption because we did not even start it. We are losing the war on reform because they are just imitation of reforms. And sometimes they end up to even more corrupted systems than now. We are losing economic war because there is no investment, because there is corruption. We are losing the war militarily. I was on the front not long ago, and the shape of our army is really cannot make me optimistic about the result of any war. There is a lot of corruption also in this field, unfortunately. But the mentality, the hope, the ideal of Maidan, the ideal of the all big elections that happen in Ukraine has not changed. The Ukrainians still want to be a decent European civilized country with perspective for their children. And because this hope has not changed, there is hope still for Ukraine. But what will happen next year? Next year will be elections. President Poroshenko is a loser. He has no more credential to be anymore the president of Ukraine. His rating is probably 7 to 8%. It will end up like Yushchenko with 4 or 5%. He has not even a chance. Alternative is Yulia Tymoshenko. Yulia Tymoshenko is a talented political person, but she's not a new person. And she will probably, we see now that she goes to the US quite often. She tries to get the support from the US. And people are so fed up. I have felt in those days in the parliament, Ukrainian fatigue. So people are so fed up with what's happening now in Ukraine. So they are ready maybe to support Yulia Vladimirovna. If they do so, next year we will have the president, that we will try to create some negotiations, some ties with Russia. because we know that Putin and Yulia Vladimirovna are in talking terms.
Yes.
I mean, there's things like this. But we are not ready for that. Ukrainians will never accept, because they keep their hope very strong to be a European independent civilized nation. So we are not ready for any concession, any negotiation with Russia. It's impossible as long as Crimea is occupied, Donbass is occupied, they're killing our guys every day. We will not accept any negotiation. So I am very afraid that next year, after the election, that Poroshenko will lose, or even worse probably if he's re-elected. And with the arrival of President like Yulia Vladimirovna, whatever talented she could be, we go to an explosive situation in Ukraine. And that's what I would like to make the parliament aware. We are 1 year before the great crisis of Ukraine, which will probably end up in a kind of dislocation or Balkanization of Ukraine if we don't do anything. So I see here a lot of goodwill of the people. I see a lot of generosity. I see a lot of willingness to help. But now we have to be radical. There is no more 1 second to lose. I mean, we have to tell those Poroshenko, Lutsenko, Avakov, and all the people there. I mean, it's finished. You have no more time. I mean, we have now to make radically the anti-corruption court. We have to change the electoral law, as very rightly said Olena. We have to make it possible to give perspective to our people, because what's happening now, and I see it in Hlukhiv, maybe even more than in Kiev, people are just massively leaving the country. They want to leave Panovamu, live the new life. But now they are going to live Panovamu in Poland or in Germany, but no more in Hlukhiv or in Kiev. And that's a catastrophe. We are emptying Ukraine of the young, hard-working, ready to build their life people of Ukraine. And that's a catastrophe. This is filling up the dream of Putin to empty Ukraine, or at least the east part, and to have between Russia and European Union like a buffer zone, a no man's land, without any laws, corruption, contraband, and everything. This, in Hlukhiv, we don't want this. We want to be a European small city with a nice perspective, and we want to build our future the right way. But that's what I try to say today to the Euro Parliament.
You mentioned the illegal annexation and occupation of Crimea. Of course, it's very much the case, and I think this is lost on a lot of people, that when Putin ordered that invasion, that annexation, he became the first European leader to do that to another European country since Adolf Hitler did it to Austria. Now, those are strong words, but that's the fact.
You're perfectly right, Gary.
There's a lot of discussion here in the EU institutions, not just the Parliament, but the Commission and also the Member States, of relaxing the sanctions on Russia. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, as a former Frenchman, I like diplomacy. I want to sell perfumes, Airbuses, Citroën, and everything to the whole world. And I would like everybody to be very friendly with everyone. But as now a citizen of Ukraine, I have to say, we have to get ready for the war. It is coming. I mean, the signs are numerous. The corruption in Ukraine is the opening gate of this war, because it will start there. So let's fight definitely the corruption in Ukraine. We have showed in Hlukhiv what it is possible. So it's possible in all the cities of the world, because Hlukhiv is the poorest city in Europe. So we could do it everywhere. Let's try to respect the ideal for which so many people were killed in Maidan or at the front. Let's use the time they give us and protecting our borders to make those changes, because if we don't do them before next year, we will have the war.
Olena, obviously Michel and yourself have been here really to talk to individual MEPs of the various political groups about the idea of Ukraine as a part of the EU, Ukraine as a European country. You've been here for a day or so. What do you think you've achieved thus far? What positives will you take back to Ukraine with you?
from the European Parliament.
From your discussions with MEPs and others?
Yes, we have a lot of very interesting meetings here with the deputies, also with the group of support of Ukraine. And for us, it's very important to come and to explain because a lot of politicians, of European politicians, they're too tired from the corruption and they just not believe that Ukraine would manage to get rid of it in the nearest time. That is why we come and we tell that we are very strong and we are ready to struggle for our own country. It's the position of all the Ukrainians. We do not afraid anything because a lot of people, because of their position, they're pushed from all the sides. For example, when I was the deputy of Kyiv City Council, my car was burned. I have had injuries and a lot of unpleasant things, but it's our country and we are going to continue this fight for our future, and we are very optimistic. We are sure that Ukraine has a great potential, and there are a lot of patriotic people who are ready to work for Ukraine and not go to the politics just to make a business club there. So we hope that in nearest future we just get real politics like it should be, and we, as a result of our cooperation here, we have a lot of mutual plans for future mutual events and here in Kyiv. So I think with the support of European Union we could do even more.
Michel, one final point. If there was one thing that you could ask of the European Union institutions now, one thing that Ukraine needs now that could possibly make a difference to help on the path to a more European Ukraine, what would that one thing be?
Stay being firm with Russia. I can see here that there is also fatigue on the sanctions, fatigue on this conflict. But the conflict is on. You have to stay being firm. That's the only concrete help that could moderate the situation and stop Putin from invading Ukraine and probably a big part of Northern Europe. It is not the time to start discussion. It is not the time to forget about Crimea. It is not the time to forget about occupation of Donbass. It is the time for Ukraine to be obliged to make the war on corruption, because if not, we don't solve anything. And it is the time for Europe to show very strong determination against Putin and against Russia. I know it's difficult. I know my French colleagues and would like all the world to be beautiful and everybody to work together. We are not in this situation right now. And in Ukraine, we are building the border of Ukraine, the eastern border, which is the eastern border of Europe. So we try to do everything possible. So this border will be on the east of Ukraine, not on the west of Ukraine or not in the middle of Ukraine. But we need your support. We need your support. And the support starts with being firm with Putin.
Well, Olena, Michel, I hope that one thing you both take away from this place with you following this visit is the fact that there is a great deal of sympathy and friendliness here towards Ukraine.
Yeah, it is.
And I hope that that's come over. I really do. And let us look forward to the day in the near future when there's more Europe in Ukraine and more Ukraine in Europe.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Slava Ukraini.
And we
Slava
highly
Europe.
appreciate what the Europe makes for Ukraine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.